Welcome to the Giants Nation Show. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, the Football Grump. And less than a month into this new show, man, and it feels like one of the biggest episodes we'll ever do. And hopefully is. Hopefully it's the last time we do a quarterback draft in the first round for a long time until I'm in my 40s. The Giants have selected Abdul Carter, third overall, and they traded up to take Jaxson Dart out of Ole Miss, 25th overall. So they get the 1-1. They got who was my 1-1 in the draft, and Abdul Carter. And then they got Brian Dable's guy, his quarterback preference to sit and learn and be molded behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. What a crazy night. Where do we even start? I'm obviously more positive when it comes to Abdul Carter. We'll talk about the Jaxson Dart stuff. But like, where do we start with? Do we start with the best player available in the draft to me, or do we start with the quarterback, Crump?
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about from a prospect standpoint or from a process standpoint, the process is enviable, right? Like this is what we want out of the third overall pick. They didn't overthink it, right? I think that there were some virtues to possibly trading down. There were some rumors that they were looking to trade down, but at the end of the day, they didn't overthink it. They stood pat and they took your 1-1, one of the highest rated guys. There aren't that many like top 10 talents in this draft, and he was definitely one of them, and they just stood there and took it, which I think is correct process.
Yeah, again, especially with the quarterbacks that were there, whether it's, whether you prefer Shedeur Sanders or Jaxson Dart. The Giants obviously preferred Jaxson Dart. Shedeur Sanders, I wasn't expecting him to go high. I was a little surprised he fell out of the first round. So we'll get into all of it. And I feel like we have to start with Jaxson Dart.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, like, Abdul Carter is so sick, and we'll do a full breakdown of him and what we're excited for. He's when I started this draft process, once the season ended, I watched him and I was like, I don't know if there's going to be anyone else I like more than this. And there wasn't. I would have preferred to have Cam Ward if that was possible, but it wasn't. So I would love to start with like the more positive thing for me, which is Abdul Carter, but we kind of got to start with the quarterback. Before we get into that, this episode was brought to by some special people. We're actually not doing names because we got to get right into it. But if you want to support this new show, and what we're doing, it's patreon.com/GiantsNation. It's $6 a month. I prefer the $9.99 group. You get stickers, t-shirt contests, and other types of perks, but it just helps support the show and make the show run. So the Giants, let's start with Jaxson Dart. They traded pick 34, their second round pick, the 99th pick, the comp pick, and a future third round pick. So essentially, they added 2 third round picks to their second round pick to move up to 25th with the Texans and draft a first round QB. I'm not a big fan of the quarterback they selected in Jaxson Dart. We'll talk about the positives and negatives, but do you want to start with like the compensation? Because I actually don't think the compensation is bad at all to move up for a first round quarterback. Again, we'll talk about it. Was he worth it? All that stuff that goes with it. But I feel like that's fairly solid comp for trading up from 34 to 25.
Yeah, I agree.
Or quarterback specifically too.
Yeah, I was going to say less so the amount of spaces that you're moving up, and more so you believe in this guy, you're trading up to go get him. This is the guy that you're going to try and mold into the future, and it costs you 2 third-round picks. That's nothing. That's nothing.
Yeah, if he pans out to what they think he can be, which obviously they don't think the world of him, or they would have picked him at third overall. But they think that he can be really good. Then it ends up being worth it. But let's just talk about Jaxson Dart, the quarterback. He completed almost 70% of his passes last year for Ole Miss, over 4,000 yards, over 10 yards per attempt, 29 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, and then ran for 650. And I'll just kind of read through the profile I have of him, and then we'll talk about, go through the ins and outs of what he is. He is a lane-kiffing quarterback who is aggressive with a solid arm and athletic ability, right? He played in an offense, though, that had 53% play action. His arm talent is fairly good. It's first-round talent, but it's not the reason why, just the arm talent. He throws in an aesthetically pleasing ball. He can throw a really nice deep ball, but it does die out sometimes at 50 yards. The deep accuracy can be off. But I do think his accuracy is mostly pretty damn good, but has routine misses, and the pressure can affect that. He's a good runner. He can get what's there and a bit more, but not super elusive. You can use zone read. He's fearless. This is the things I like the most out of Jaxson Dart here. Fearless, giving wide receivers a chance downfield on the sideline or in the middle field. He will look to split, the safety who is stationary up the middle. He also throw a ball into double coverage downfield, but he trusts the offense that Lane Kiffin put in front of him to throw passes with anticipation, especially over the middle. No fear ripping his first read over the middle. Good timing getting ball to receivers out of their breaks. He throws the sail really well. But I think he and the Ole Miss offense was first read, check down, run was his consistent plan. He was late to anything that isn't his primary read, doesn't get to the backside of progressions. Quick game is really bad, not on menu much, and doesn't see spacing. Eyes go down when first read isn't there. A hint of pressure, escapes from clean pockets too often, plays too early. And then he had disaster end of games. So, first, Grump, he's not going to play year one, or at least not much, hopefully. And that's the good thing with a player like Jaxson Dart coming from that Ole Miss offense. Brian Daboll believes, I don't think it's necessarily just like, he believes in the arm talent and his talent. He has talent. He's got pretty good talent. I think what Brian Daboll believes in, Grump, is the aggression. It's the aggressive mindset. And that hurts him a lot of the times, but it's also something that you always, when you're looking for a quarterback, you'd rather take the guy that is aggressive, that you want to rein back in a little bit, compared to the guy who's conservative, who you got to give a kick in the ass to throw that ball downfield.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that when Brian Daboll likes film stuff, but he really doesn't get to like a person until he gets to talk to them and kind of quiz them and see what goes on between the ears. And I definitely think that his downfield mentality is challenge the defense, throw the deep ball, be aggressive. That mentality is definitely something that I think Brian Daboll covets. There are definite warts with the Lane Kiffin offense, and it can refine a quarterback's ability to be on tempo and to make quick reads and make quick decisions. Make a quick decision, not quick decisions. I think that is the problem, right? There's a plateau, there's a ceiling where that offense stops developing a quarterback. And I think that's the big problem. So my hope,
or so making the decision that we've created for you quickly, and Dart doesn't do that well.
Yeah, exactly. And for what it's worth, it's a fairly successful, it was successful under him, right? In the years he was there, 62% completion rating, 65%, then 69%, 3,000 yards, 3,300, 4,300, 20 touchdowns, 23 touchdowns, 29 touchdowns. He did grow a little bit in this system. And you see the rushing yards kind of go down too. In his first year, 2022, over 600 yards rushing, all the way down to 400 and then back up to 500. The offense was successful with him in it. You know what I mean? It's a high percentage, high completion, timing-based, up-tempo offense, and he ran it very well. He's going to have to move those traits into a more expansive offense. And I mean, if a positive you can take away is that Jaxson Dart believed in the offense that he was running, then you merely have to get him to believe in the offense that you want to run and believe in himself to run it. So I think that it can work. The concerns are legitimate because there's no like film evidence of him doing the things that he's going to have to do, reading the field and making more complicated decisions and having to react to things happening post snap that he was not expecting. That's all stuff that he's going to have to develop. It's also a fairly common thing for quarterbacks to have to develop coming out in the draft. It's not that uncommon for guys to have to work on this stuff. It's just that it doesn't look like first round defense reading ability. Everything else looks like first round talent to me.
And again, we'll talk about more, I want to talk about the positives first before we get into the things that worry me. But with what you're saying is, reading, it's not just, he's in an Ole Miss offense that doesn't translate to the NFL. My issue is okay, he does the Ole Miss offense stuff well, but when the Ole Miss stuff offense doesn't have the easy answer, I felt like it broke down way more than what I would have liked out of first round quarterback. But let's talk about the deep passing overall. Because what I think he's got to clean up his footwork of the deep passing, because you look at his highlights and it's just beautiful passes down the field. They're beautiful. It's a pretty football. And there's some nice, there's some real deal throws. And it's not just simple, guy wide open, make the throw. Those are there, but he makes aggressive throws. He threw the ball 20 plus air yards, which is a deep pass, 22% of the time, which is the most in this class, right? That's the most in this class. Now, he also had a higher turnover-worthy play rate than Cam Ward, Shador, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shugg, Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, Roar, basically every quarterback in this class outside of Riley Leonard. He completed 42% of them, which that's a good number. In the NFL and college, I feel like it's good, especially when you think about the amount of volume he's throwing it, that he's not going to have the highest completion percentage, but it is still lower than the six of the guys on that list, including, Ward, Shador. I'm not worried about the completion rate being lower than those guys again because of the volume, but also that volume should make his turnover worthy, like the bad plays be diluted a little bit. And instead, that's where his number is really high. I think, again, he needs to work on his footwork because, again, he can throw a beautiful ball, but I think at 50 yards, the ball putters out a little bit. And I think that's a lot of times he's fading away into those throws. Again, you're not going to be able to step into every throw, especially if you're running the Brian Dable offense the way that he wants at times. But we want you to step into the throws that are there to be just stepped into, throwing the ball 50 yards. And here's where, again, I think is the best thing though. Like if you're looking at like, this is why I would bet. If you ask Bobby, why would you bet on Jaxson Dart? It's not just deep passing or his athleticism. It is that in that Ole Miss offense, he throws those receivers the ball when they're getting into their break. Like it's not waiting for them. He's trusting it. He's throwing it, and he's throwing with good anticipation, and most of the time, good accuracy. He has some routine misses when pressure's there. The misses happen a little more. Those throws over the middle of the field. Now, those are different than NFL middle of the field throws because, a lot of times they're RPOs with a glance that's 15 yards down the field. You can't, it's not just that it's not an NFL play. You can't run that play in the NFL because of the rules. And that's a big difference between college, right? And it's 53% play action. It's not NFL play action. It's RPOs, and not NFL RPOs, where you're going to have the free release hits. So that's my good on Dart. Again, the arm talent, I think, is good. I don't think it's like, this is what we got to go bet on this arm talent, but it's good. It's better than Shador Sanders. It's worse than Cam Ward's, in my opinion. Jalen Miller has a bigger arm, but I think Dart has better like arm talent than him. So it's probably the second best arm talent in the class.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I definitely think that he has the better arm talent than Shador Sanders. The accuracy is different between the two of them. That is kind of the big difference between the two. And I don't want to really talk about Sanders too much, but for me, the difference between those two prospects was really the traits that you value. One was a little bit more conservative, but far more accurate. The other one was more of a risk taker. And that, for me, that's something that I value a little bit more. I think that he's actually pretty fearless throwing the ball. In fact, probably too fearless. Throwing into triple coverage is just stupid. But yeah, he does throw into tight windows. He throws with great anticipation and great timing. And I think that in the pocket, he can be in the pocket and running the ball. In general, as a quarterback, he will stand in the pocket and take a lick and deliver the ball. Does he bail out of the pocket sometimes when it's clean? Yes. And I think most of that has to do with panic when things are not developing the way that he anticipated and he doesn't know what the hell is going on. I don't think it has to do with bailing from pressure early. I actually think that if anything, his internal clock is a little bit too long. He trusts his athleticism to get away from stuff a little bit too much. And I would like him to take some less unnecessary hits, because one of the things I like about him is that he's a fearless runner. He will slide when he thinks he needs to, but he will also put his shoulder down and run through a defender when he thinks it's the right thing to do. And a lot of times it is. I don't recall seeing him too many unnecessary, like, ooh, don't take that hit, buddy, like as a runner. So I like his demeanor, his mentality. I like that he's a tough guy that wants to go down swinging, as opposed to someone that's going to play it safe all the way to the end.
I like that, but here's where let's talk about my biggest worry. And it's a two-parted thing here. And first, you know what we got to do, actually? Like, I'm what a freaking teaser by me. First, this episode of the Giants Nation Show is brought to you by Body Armor Sports Drink. Rewrite your routine and choose better with Body Armor. Body Armor is real hydration with electrolytes, coconut water, and no artificial dyes, flavors, or sweeteners. With great tasting flavors like strawberry banana and orange mango, that's my favorite. Body Armor will level up your hydration game. Grab Body Armor Sports Drink today at your local grocery store. Body Armor. Choose better. Hold on. I'm going to do a little drink.
You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. Thank you, Body Armor, for sponsoring this draft weekend. Excited to have them on board for not just this, but even more. So let's talk about like the playing within the Lane Kiffin offense, which again, I will not say up. You suck because you play in the Ole Miss offense. Because it is very much, we're telling you to throw here, right? Because we know that this is going to work and this is going to be open. But it's not going to be at all times. And it's also not going to be at times at the end of the game where teams know you're passing, right? And the threat of run and quick release hitches aren't worried about as much by a defense. And I felt like when that first read was taken away, it was, okay, let me try and scramble around. If the running back is open in the flats, I'll throw it to him if he's got space, or I'm going to run. It was very much like his eyes just go down when that read's not there, or there's pressure, or there's quick pressure there. The eyes just go down, and that's really worrisome to me. So that's an issue. When they did run quick game, it was ugly, right? No understanding of the spacing, afraid to pull the trigger on some of those stuff. So we talk about aggression, but he didn't trust the quick game. When there was legit like NFL concepts with backside reads, we never really got to them. Like I said, it was like first read, eyes down. Now, again, you can work with some of that stuff, but this is where the end of game meltdowns really bother me, right? And we could say, it's just a few games, or or people only talk about the Florida game. But if I worry about a guy who just breaks down when it's really stressful, right? It's not just like, he doesn't play in an NFL offense, you got to teach him that stuff. It's like, okay, but we had real deal breakdowns at the end of the games. The Florida game is the one that everyone cites the most. I mean, I went back and rewatched film and just to tell people what happened in those games instead of just saying he melted down. First, in the Florida game, he had a rolling out overthrow against double coverage. Then he had an interception in the triple coverage where he said on the John Gruden show, I was predetermining my read and the emotions got the best of me, right? Just saw the defense that he was facing, thought the safety would bite, and just throws in the triple coverage. Then he threw a sail into quadruple coverage that wasn't intercepted. And then there was a miscommunication interception on a conversion route versus cover 2. But even then, even if the receiver converted it the way that he thought, that safety was there. And that got called back because of a penalty. And then he has an interception where I don't know what he was trying to do. Throw it away. I don't know, where he just floats the ball up 30 yards down the field, 40 yards down the field. No receiver in sight into a safety's hands. So that's the worst game, right? You see him crying in Joe Judge's lap. Like, that's a lasting memory in some people's minds with him. But they had 2 other losses, and I thought he just showed up so small in those games. In the LSU game in overtime, you got to take advantage of that. He had an underthrown ball that was into double coverage that a DB like tipped up, where I think the other DB, I'm not going to say DB would intercept it because they have bad hands, but it would have been in the other DB's hands, right, into double coverage and underthrown. And then the next play, he does have a flat-out dropped interception, and then so they're not able to score a touchdown. They lose that game. The Kentucky game, not as damning as the other ones. He actually had this 4th and 11 throw that was insane, where he had to throw it up, and the receiver comes down with it. Then the next play, they're at the 34-yard line. He misses a deep throw, right? Okay, that happens. I'm not going to be like, damn, dude, this guy can't hit the deep pass. Then he rolls out to the left on a play that's not there, and he should throw the ball away because they are at the 34-yard line, remember, and they need a field goal to win the game. He takes a sack, right? Should have thrown the ball away, takes a sack. And then the next play, he scrambles, and it was a defensive offside, so it ended up getting called back. But he just takes a hit, ball pops out, lands into Kentucky. But they get pushed back because of that sack. They miss the field goal. They lose that game to Kentucky. That is my biggest those things combined, Grump, and I know I'm talking a lot right now. Those things combined, the fact that a lot of the production comes from an Ole Miss offense that creates production with whoever they're going to put under center or behind center at quarterback. And then on top of that, just not having any comfortability when the first read's not there. And then when you talk about crunch time, where it's like, you need to go above what the X's and O's are giving you, that's when Jaxson Dart played his worst. So you could talk to me about his fieriness and his competitiveness, and that all matters to me. But the real competitiveness to me is, how does your heart calm down in those moments? And Jaxson Dart's film showed it. He said it to John Gruden in his video that I'm predetermining reads, and the emotions get the best of me in these moments.
I mean, I don't have any rebuttal to that because it's all solid, it's all true, and it's all the biggest concern about him. I would also say that this is just a quarterback class where there isn't a lot of good. Taking sacks, Shedeur Sanders take 20-yard sacks when he should just give up on a play routinely through 4 years of college doing that shit. Cam Ward falling to Syracuse. You know what I mean? Like, Cam Ward, the entire Miami Hurricanes team kind of took a dip at the end of the year. Now, we're not talking about the same level of meltdown. I'm just saying that this is kind of the class that we're in. There are warts all over the place, and these are the warts for Jaxson Dart, and they're tough ones to swallow.
But here's where with Joe Schoen and Brandon, what they believe in. They're two guys that passed on quarterbacks at 6, and I've never been against it. I was, I still like Michael Penix, JD McCarthy need to do more for me to say I regret that. Bo Nix has done some really good stuff. I'm not sitting here saying I regret not taking Bo Nix, but I can see he can be on a path to make me regret that. But they passed up on those guys, Grump, and a year later, I understand it's not the 6th overall, and they're trading to the first round and stuff, but they're giving up multiple picks for a guy who would have been, if you combine these QB classes together, probably would have been QB 7 or 8 for them.
I mean, maybe.
When there was a chance they could have got fired, and again, say what you want, they are in a weird spot. Now, hopefully Dart doesn't play. Hopefully they don't let outside pressure force them to play Dart if things don't go the way they want this season, and we'll talk about that. And that's where Dart, regardless of the situation, is a player who shouldn't play much year one unless you want to throw him in for the last quarter of the season just to get him some live reps. But again, I am not convinced that if this is Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll's year one that they're trading up for Jaxson Dart in this situation. I really don't believe that.
Probably not. No. I mean, if I had to rank the quarterbacks, and again, like I think that for a lot of this is relying on what Brian Daboll thinks more so than Joe Schoen.
Well, it is, where there's rumors of like them disagreeing on Shedeur and Dart.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we had to rank the guys that Brian Daboll was comfortable with, you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to say like, oh, he would have been ranked 8th in the class last year. It's like, true. I mean, I don't know. Like, where did Penix really land for Brian Daboll? Does he like anything about Michael Penix? Doesn't really matter what you and I think. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really matter. That's a weird thing to say. It doesn't really matter what you and I think, but.
Yeah, it does. I'm not sitting here being like, they have to listen to my opinion, but like, I
think what matters is clearly Brian Daboll's favorite in all of this. In the years that he's been here, I think Jaden Daniels is the only quarterback that he was the number one quarterback he would have taken. After that, I think probably Cam Ward. After that, I think it's actually close between Drake May and Jaxson Dart.
By the way, they offered a first to move up to as the first to move up for Cam Ward. So that was, and I don't think I would have been mad at that either. It's obviously risky, but I would have been.
No, but I mean, like, some of the traits are the same, right? Like, he's definitely going to push the ball down the field. He's going to be rather fearless with it. He knows how to extend plays. He stays calm. He is reading things in front of him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a stretch. You know what I mean? Like, Shedeur, I had Shedeur ranked above Jaxson Dart, but I see the traits don't align really with what Brian Daboll looks for. So
no, he's
not at all shocked.
Brian Daboll.
Exactly.
So this has nothing to do with Shedeur versus Dart.
No. I'm just saying in terms of if we're gonna rank, like what you said, like I don't. If this is year one, I don't see them trading into the first round for them. That's probably true. They probably doesn't like him enough for that. But I don't think like where he ranks versus last year's class is really the factor for that. I think that. I don't know if one of the things about Jaxson Dart that we don't like his panic. Let's just say his panic when the first read isn't there isn't the thing with him, but everything else is still the same. He still has issues where he's predetermining his reads. He's melting down late in games. That's all still there. Did they trade into the first round for the cost of 2 third-round picks to get?
I don't hate the compensation. I'm not.
No, I'm just saying, like, I in year one, maybe. I don't know. And it's also weird because year one for them, they had Daniel Jones in this thing. They kind of had like the leash going into it. Where it's like, well, we might as well see what we have with him anyway. You know what I mean? They kind of went in like an effort mentality in their first year in terms of the roster.
I mean, I think they went in the mentality that Jones is just a QB for the next year, and then we're moving off of it.
Exactly.
So again, but like, so that's my negative on Dart. Again, I think the arm talent is good. It's not great. But like I said, I think second best arm talent in the class. Milroe, stronger arm. Dart, better arm talent. And then Cam Ward having the best. Even though I think Dart is actually more precise than Cam Ward, where Cam Ward can lack precision at times.
I think that's due to some lazy footwork at times.
Right. And again, I think some of Dart's balls fluttering out at like 50 yards can deal with footwork. Because, it's not like we're not talking about a guy who's like got to step in, crow hop to have these nice deep throws. Go watch the highlights. They are beautiful throws, and he's not stepping into every single one of them. And so again, I want to get to Abdul Carter here in a second, and not talk. We'll recap the full draft as well with Jaxson Dart on Monday's show. But it's just that's my worry. The things I like, good arm talent. Right, that he has NFL starting quarterback arm talent. We could say maybe I should have done a ranking the arm talents of him versus guys in the league, but it's good arm talent. Is it Allen, Lamar? No, it's not those guys, but it's good. It's better than, I don't know. Like it's like Dak Prescott's arm talent, right? It's not perfectly apples to apples, but like that's the kind of level of arm talent that he has, and we know Dak has good arm talent. He's a good runner. Again, is he like he's my thing of good runner is not like, oh, what is this 40 time, right? People talk about like Tyler Suggs 40 times, like, yeah, but watch him run, or Michael Penn. It's like he's not a good runner. Stop this madness. Mine is like, will the team ever call zone reads with you? Yes. Ole Miss did it a lot. Brian Dable's going to do it with him if Brian Dable ever gets to coach him seriously. The other good things is you have that built-in aggression. I feel like you got to have it to be one of the best. You have to have that to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, to throw deep down the field, throw in the middle of the field with anticipation, and trust what you're seeing. He has that. And the other thing is he's in a situation where he doesn't have to play right away, and I think that's very important for Jaxson Dart. Not because, again, if the Giants had just Jameis Winston on this roster, I'm a little like, oh gosh, like people are going to be calling for Jaxson Dart to start, and this is not going to be good. At least with Russ and Jameis, even if it gets really bad with Russ, you can go to Jameis for like a 4-game buffer until you play Dart for the last 4 games of the year, and we'll see what happens with Shane and Dable if you ever got to that point. But he's got to sit, right? We're going to break down his training camp and analyze it, Grump. But I'm not going to sit there and judge him off of what he's showing there. He's got to sit a year. And if he plays as a rookie and doesn't play well, that's not what's going to make me want to move off of Jaxson Dart, because the expectation should not be to play really well as a rookie.
100%. Every quarterback in this draft not named Cam Ward was going to need to sit for at least a year.
Yeah. Well, I don't like Shador either, so I don't want to like oh Shador, but I think Shador could run an NFL offense, but it's just like
but he shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like
no.
Same thing with Jaxson Dart.
Cam Ward, I
would
think
start
too.
Should he? No.
I think Cam Ward would be. I'm
kind
of a believer in the sit quarterbacks, anyways. Guys like Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud prove you're wrong, and sometimes I wonder, it's like, do we talk too much about sitting a QB versus not, when in reality it's like, you know what, the great QBs figure it out. Middle of the road QBs like the Geno Smith, Sam Darnold and stuff, the debate's there, but what are you getting at the end of the day with those guys? I mean, what do you want to hit on anything on Jaxson Dart else before we move to Abdul Carter? Like, I'm sitting here, I'm like fiending to talk about Abdul Carter, but again, I don't think this is the second time I've ever done a podcast about a first round QB, and I don't want to just like move on to the next subject. Like, this is what, this will be the most listened to episode the second that this and week 1 and Jaxson Dart's first game, those are gonna be the 3 most listened to episodes for the next calendar year.
I mean, for me, the most important thing is that he has the proper skill set to work in the Brian Daboll offense. If Brian Daboll believes that he can fix the things that are wrong, then I'm on board with it. If this is all desperation to save jobs, then it's obviously a terrible, terrible pick. But we'll never know. We'll never really know what the full feeling of what Brian Daboll is, the honest evaluation. Yeah.
Be good, Jaxson Dart.
Yeah, please. Like, we need it.
We always want to be right in our evaluations. That's why we do this draft stuff. Anyone who says it doesn't.
No, tell me I'm wrong. Come in here and win.
Well, no, if they get drafted by the Giants, tell me I'm wrong, right? If Jaxson Dart got drafted by whatever, I'd be like, all right, like I'd prefer to be right if some QBs are not going to be good in the NFL. I'd prefer the ones that I predicted that to be that. Again, I'm going to break down every game of film, everything. I'm going to be breaking down Jaxson Dart. So let's move on to Abdul Carter, who the Giants drafted at 3rd overall. But first, we got to move on to Grump. The Sussex County Miners. And you're like, what is that? Well, that's a baseball team, and we are a baseball show. The Sussex County Miners are entering their 10th anniversary season, Grump, and they've been huge supporters of Giants Nation. So, like, if there's a lot of new people listening to this show, I used to do another Giants podcast. It was like the number one, and I left. And I started my own thing. I'm like, what am I going to do? I've lost my salary. Guess who stepped up? And it's like, we want to support you, right? They didn't come to me and say, hey, so what's this package? And sell us on what you want. No, they said, hey, we have this amount of money. What can we do to help you get you off your feet? So they are supporting the whole draft weekend. They're going to be doing some stuff in the summer. I'm going to be going to a game. It's obviously in Sussex County morning. I mean, again, if this isn't a sales guy who's a fan of the show, this is their GM, Vincent Sangemino, their owner, Mike Dorso. They are lifelong Giants fans. They're listening to this podcast not to hear their advertisement because they want to hear about their quarterback and their pass rusher and Abdul Carter. So they're showing up for the Giants Nation community. Now let's show up for them. scminers.com for tickets and promo info. If you're in the area, go to a game. If you're not, buy a hat, right? They send us all types of stuff. They got a great logo, which is very important for a baseball team. So check out scminers.com. Again, we'll be talking about them all draft weekend. Grump, I need to take a big drink of water before we talk about the next thing because I feel like I'm talking. We streamed for 5 hours. So let me get a drink of water.
You go ahead and do that. Abdul Carter is slam dunk pick for me. And like I said earlier, they didn't overthink the situation. If the price wasn't right to move down, then they stayed pat at 3 and they took Bobby's 1st overall talent. My 2nd overall talent, Abdul Carter, 21 years old, 6'3", 250 pounds with 33-inch arms. The man is an animal. He's not the fastest off the snap. He's not the biggest defensive end, but he
is the fastest off the snap. Dan. He's a freak. He's the fastest man alive.
He's a super high motor player, dude. Excellent speed, excellent pursuit. Doesn't give up on plays. You've never really truly run away from Abdul Carter. He just hasn't caught you yet.
It's unreal watching him. When we started this pre-draft process, Grump, we do a little bit in the summer. I do a little bit in season, but when it really starts, when the Giants season is over, I watched Abdul Carter play, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to find someone that I like more than that in this draft. And, his first year up at the position at edge, moving from stack linebacker, and it was just domination. 12 sacks, 24 tackles for a loss. Led the nation in pressures. Like his 22%. And again, this is his first time playing the position. Like he has, people talk about Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. Like he had better pass rush win rate and better stats than both those guys. His first year at the position, he is just so explosive off the ball. And sudden is the word, right? He is on you on a hurry, and if you overcompensate, he's going to beat you inside. And if you're protecting the inside, he has a leap bend to bend around the corner. You can put him in space and he can close in on a hurry, right? He's not just someone who wins pass rush reps. He's someone who finishes. You can line him up all over the place. He works laterally well. We'll talk about some of his deficiencies as like in the run game, overall strength, Grump. But this was my 1-1 in the class. This is who I woke up wanting, and I got him.
Yeah, I mean the athleticism is off the charts. That's the kind of the first thing you notice. He kind of move him around a little bit. He found his home at edge only this last year, and he's still figuring out the nuances, right? So like right now, when I look at his hands, I see super active hands. I see really strong hands, but he doesn't really know 100% what he's doing all the time. And sometimes there's some wasted punches and stuff like that. And there's a lot that he can clean up. And I to say the sky's the limit is like such a cheesy thing, but like it's really, really difficult to see where the ceiling is with him because there is so much stuff that can be not so much stuff that can be cleaned up, but there are so many things that could make a catastrophic leap for him forward. A very dramatic leap for him forward and just cleaning up just a couple of things because of the other things that he does really, really well. Like just having a high motor and never giving up on a play. Like you look at clips of him like late in the fourth quarter, he looks just as active as if it were like the first couple snaps in the first quarter. He is super, super active. I also think that in the run game, he might have some deficiencies. We're going to talk about that. But when it comes to his run reads, I don't think that he plays himself out of plays,
No.
which normally, like somebody newer to the position, you'd expect that to be one of their deficiencies. Like he's not a dummy. Like he just needs to get reps there. And they line him up all over the place. He's such an athlete and he's so active and disruptive and frustrating for offensive linemen that you can kind of find your matchup and just sort of move him around. He's not Micah Parsons, but he does have that ability to kind of just like squeeze around and you can exploit a
He's
weakness.
the closest thing I've seen to Micah Parsons. Right. And that's not saying like, oh, like closest, like just over like Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa. I think those guys are better than Micah Parsons. Just like ability and style. Like it's the only thing I've seen that's actually even been close to Micah Parsons. I'm like, I'll just kind of read through my bullet points in my write-up. Is freaky athlete who transitioned from stack to edge. Speed and explosiveness is great and sets up everything for him. Lateral quickness is unmatched and makes plays for him. Great bend and dip, but can lose balance at times. Ability to transition creates nightmares. Suddenness to slow play and go messes with O-line pass sets. Will slow play at the top of the rush to freeze O-line and win corner. Great ability to string moves together. Works swat to spin, ghost, hezzy rip. Doesn't have great play strength once connected with offensive linemen. Just needs to add power into his game / use speed to power. Disruptor in the run game overall. Will pull overzealous run blockers to shed. Great instincts taking on move blockers. Will get moved off the spot on double and doesn't squeeze offensive linemen down. Gives you stand-up A, B gap snaps as rusher, spy, and coverage. We'll talk about third down and the way you can move him around. But again, it's just to be a good pass rusher to be a great pass rusher in the NFL, there's one thing you need to do. You got to be able to win around the corner, right? It's simple as that. You have to be able to win consistently around the corner, not because that's all you do, because that's what sets everything else up. If you can win around the corner, he does that. That sets him up for inside moves. That sets him up. What I think he needs to get better as a pass rusher. Obviously, we can go say just get stronger, right? It's easier said than done. But with his speed and explosiveness and the way tackles will play him, Grump, he doesn't need to be the strongest guy in the world to work power. We'll go look at a guy like James Pierce. He's not that strong, but he understands. When I got a tackle who's on his heels, bring the power, right? Just threaten him with that. Put that in his mind, and you'll win some snaps like that because he doesn't need to bull rush the quarterback lineman to the quarterback. He needs to get some power, get that offensive lineman off balance, and then win inside or outside. Just utilize it. Don't live off of it, but utilize it. And then his other weakness in the run game is that when you double team him, he's going to get moved off the spot. He's never going to squeeze a tackle down and set a great edge. But he also is a extreme disruptor in the run game. We're not talking about a guy who is just I don't think like he's not a negative in the run game. Right. If you want to talk about the group of having Burns, Kayvon, and Carter, talk about like that being a negative for the Giants, sure. But him as on his own, he is a positive in the run game.
Yeah, I agree. And as far as the strength goes, like, first of all, he is going to get stronger. You put him on an NFL nutrition plan, you put him in an NFL weight room with an NFL strength and conditioning coach, he's just going to get stronger. For him, it's really about taking what he already has, the natural tools he has, and the ability and the mentality and the aggression, and just putting it into the best possible position. And the Giants are kind of in a fortunate situation with Andre Patterson being a coach that's probably going to unlock a lot of stuff and probably pretty quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if we, at the end of, come January, we're looking at, game weeks 1 through 3 versus weeks, 16 through 18, and be like, look at how much better this guy, and look at how much better this guy. You know what I mean? That's not going to shock me at all. Um, one of the things I think is strictly getting the pad level perfectly correct, using the strength at the right time, knowing when to string together the right moves. You know what I mean? If you start getting guys really, really worried about your speed around the edge, that's when you know to put an inside move in there, or maybe work a tackle and stunt or something like that. Finding ways to just really make offensive linemen uncomfortable with what you already have, I think is going to make him an immediate impact.
Yeah, so like let's talk about like the Giants specific fit, right? Because we just talked about him as an edge rusher. That goes for every team in the NFL.
Right.
If Shane Bowen, with the guys they add in the secondary, and we'll see what they do at defensive tackle. That's, I think, the biggest issue with trading up is,
yeah,
you lost pick 34 and 99. Those were primo spots for defensive tackle. And now it's like if you don't take one at 65, the value's not right. What are you doing? Now I'm worried about the defensive tackle group. But outside of that, this defense should be ready to go, right? With the secondary pieces you've added, with the draft picks you've invested, and this pass rush, it should be ready to go. And then when you do get to third down, this should be the most creative defense in the NFL. I'm not just talking about the coverage things you could do when you have two versatile safeties like Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin. I'm not talking about the corner and Paulson Adebo who takes chances and gets interceptions, and you can set him up for that. Here's one thing, Grump. How about you're a center, and on one side of you, you got Dexter Lawrence, and on the other side, you got Abdul Carter standing up. And then for the tackles, you got Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns in wide alignments. And then you got Chauncey Golson, who's edge/D lineman combo over the guard. How do you set a protection for that? Knowing it's a defense that was going to run stunts, that can do all types of different blitzes, you can drop guys into coverage. Like, there's so many different things. The third down should be my foot. When I'm doing film reviews, I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to go through defensive third downs. It should be a dream. It should be the most fun thing I've ever done covering football. With this, there's so much you can do. Whether you move, Abdul around, right? You drop him back as a spy versus Jaden Daniels, right? That's a huge piece against playing Jaden Daniels. Yeah. It's not just winning as a pass rusher; it's about finishing. Well, Abdul Carter is someone who can finish the play against Jaden Daniels, the way you see him close out on ball carriers and quarterbacks. There's a lot of things you can do. There's ways you can now create one-on-ones for Dex, or create one-on-ones for Burns, or create one-on-ones for Carter. The Giants are keeping Kayvon Thibodeau, picking up their fifth-year option. That went under the radar a little bit, you think. But, man, I can't wait to watch Abdul Carter play football. Like, even just one-on-ones with Andrew Thomas, I can't wait for.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun because he is an absolute monster, and I expect some training camp fights. I'm not kidding. If there are training camp fights, I expect Abdul Carter to be somewhat involved. Yeah, I mean, you don't set a protection for something like that. You throw a screen and hope for the best, I think, is really what you do on third down for that. My big question to you is, do you think Shane Bowen runs as many 5 or 6 man pressures now?
We'll see. I'm not going to say what I think, right? I remember, I remember coming on this recap pod when the Giants drafted Kadarius Toney. And it's like, maybe this signals that Jason Garrett's really going to get creative with what he did. And they didn't, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, Shane Bowen's going to change from what he's been. So that's, I'm not going to, this pod is not about my expectations for Shane Bowen. Or what I'm expecting. What I'm saying is the expectation should be more than what we saw from him last year. So I'm just so excited for Abdul Carter, and there's so many different things you can do with him. And then especially when you're pairing him with Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau to a lesser extent.
Yeah, I mean, basically what I'm saying, though, is that the Giants were leading the league in sacks, believe it or not, for several weeks last year. Now, some of that was bringing more 5th and 6th pressures than he showed in Tennessee, at least as far as I'm aware of. And perhaps that's Shane Bowen needing to manufacture a rush and getting some results or whatever. But I actually, they kind of took one of their defensive strengths and made it stronger without sacrificing anything. They brought in Golston, and now they've drafted Abdul Carter. They've really made a rotation of guys there, and I think that they've maximized the guys that they expect to be starters in Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns by allowing them some time to catch their breath. You know what I mean? So
Right.
this is huge just in that regard. Even if Abdul Carter wasn't the 3rd overall pick, let's just say that the Giants were picking 25th overall to begin with, and they got, the 4th best edge rusher. That is still true. Like, just the addition of a guy who can contribute as a 1st-round pick on the defensive line, just what it brings to the guys you already have in the locker room is huge.
Right. Yeah. So I'm excited. I mean, we've kind of said everything, right? We're about 45 minutes into the show, Grump.
Well, so here's one thing I do want to say about tonight's draft, not necessarily about Abdul Carter or Jaxson Dart. You were saying that giving up the 99th pick and moving from the 34th pick affects your defensive tackles. I'm a little worried it affects the offensive tackles. I don't even know who is going to exist at 65 that's worth anything. And I truly felt going into this draft that they needed to walk away with a plan at offensive tackle, something more than James Hudson and Stone Forsythe. And I don't know if it's even possible right now.
No, it's not really. But again, so like forecasting for Friday night, the Giants now pick 65, which is the first pick of the 3rd round. They have whip pick 105. They have in the 4th to start off the 4th round, and then 154 in the 5th, and then their 2 7th-round picks. So right now they have 5 more picks, right? Yeah, I did that math right, correct? Yes, I did that math correct. They went from 8 picks to 7 picks. But man, what an eventful night. Like, the Giants took, again, in my opinion, the best player available, and they took a quarterback in the 1st round. For some teams, they don't do this ever. Some teams, they do it all the time. I mean, Grump, this is like the 3rd time ever where as a Giants fan, I'm like, my team drafted a quarterback in the 1st round.
The 3rd time ever
that I can think of. It's Eli, Daniel Jones, and Jaxson Dart.
Yeah, I guess
2 Ole Miss guys.
And a Duke. They all wore blue and white.
So they just, yeah, they.
I just realized how stupid that sounded.
It's also very funny that it's like, all right, you either have to go to Ole Miss or be coached by David Cutcliffe to be like Eli Manning predecessor. There needs to be some connection to Eli Manning's college football career.
Yeah.
Here, I'll say this. We both have Shedeur rated than Dart, or higher rated than Dart. What do you think about that? Because I'm a little surprised Shedeur fell out of the 1st. I'm not surprised that he fell overall. Do you think the Dion factor and all that goes with Shedeur is playing a role in this, or is it simply that he doesn't have a great arm, he's not a very good athlete, and his film is not that great? Like, I think it's as simple as that. And then people are like, well, why am I going to do that and bring on like pressure from Deion Sanders and the media market? What, I don't know. But I do believe that that Dave will just simply like Jaxson Dart better as a football player. I think the rumors, I'm not even thinking. The rumors that Shane and Brown prefer Shedeur, those are true. But at the end of the day, they let the guy who's going to coach the quarterback pick the quarterback in Brian Daboll.
Yeah, I mean, I think from Brian Daboll's perspective, he went with the guy that he thinks is a better fit for him and maybe what he can develop more.
He swung higher.
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of, and again, that goes to what I was saying before. It's which traits do you value? Because Jaxson Dart does some things better than Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders does some things better than Jaxson Dart. I think that the general consensus of Dart being like almost undraftable is like there is some insane rhetoric on both of these guys. Is the Dion factor actually factoring into Shedeur? I think it's hard to not, right? Like, I'm not. I don't. It may not even be Dion's fault. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to imagine ESPN, who still talks about LeBron James every single time they can, or Alex Ovechkin breaks a long-standing hockey record, and the first thing ESPN does is this more impressive than LeBron James? Like, You telling me that even if Dion keeps his mouth shut, they're not going to be shoving microphones in his face college game day, asking him his opinion on what's going on with Shador at X city for X team? They're absolutely going to do that. And Dion is a guy that eventually does talk, even if he is tempering himself sometimes. So, yeah, why invite that extra bullshit for a guy whose film is just not that good?
I think it's the film. Now, again, at the same
I
time,
think it's the film first.
yes, it is. Now, at the same time, film. There's again, I had Shador higher than Jaxson Dart. Some people had Dart QB2 and Sanders QB3. Again, opinions with the draft, you figure out in a couple years on guys. Starts or early, one way or the other, but we'll see. But we'll a film breakdown out of Jaxson Dart. If you're listening to this early in the morning, it's not out yet, but if you're listening in the morning, it should be out at some point in the morning. We'll be live for day 2 and day 3. We'll do a full draft recap on Monday, film breakdowns of every single Giants draft pick. So I appreciate you guys for supporting. I know it's you wish they drafted the quarterback that you're totally in love with. But hey, the Giants have a new quarterback. Gonna root for him to succeed. I'm gonna live and die with every throw, right? It's just the nature of it, and hopefully the Giants have their franchise quarterback, because once you have that figured out, life as a fan is just so much easier. So we will see you when we see you. Thank you again to Body Armor and the Sussex County Miners. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.